both the teams on making it to the novice finals of Smvit. Big congratulations on making it so far. Let's have a good debate now. Just a few introductions. My name is Shaurya. I'll be your chair for this round. I have no preferred pronouns. You can refer to the panel as a whole. I invite my panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello, this is Arvin. I'm one of the panel. Congratulations for reaching this far, and I wish both teams good luck.
Hello, this is Ayushi. Congratulations on reaching here. All the best for the debate.
Hello everyone,
Hi everyone.
Pratyaksha,
Hi everyone. My name is Collins, your panelist for this round. All the best. Good luck to you all.
Hello everyone, Pratyaksha, panelist. All the best.
Great. I know you all must be familiar with the formalities, but I have to carry them out regardless. Before your speech, please introduce yourself with your POI and your pronoun preference if you have any. We encourage you guys to give and take POIs, but ensure that they don't cross or exceed 15 seconds. And be sure not to badger the other speaker. Please track your time. There's also a timer here. And note that we won't be writing anything beyond the 7:15 mark. Let's have a good debate. Congratulations to both the teams. I invite the Prime Minister to begin the debate. Here.
Hello everyone, Tanishka this side. So happy to make it to the Novice finals. Special shout out to my teammates, Anushri Kumar, who is literally the love of my life. And also Shardul, the one guy who absolutely says to a mock with me anytime I deliberately take him up for it. And both of them have helped me reach till here. And let's have a great debate, guys. On that note, Tanishka Vaishali this side. I'll be the PM for this debate. And considering the POI preferences, I would prefer them after 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And please don't heckle me before that. Your POI, you can ask in POI by raising your hand, or you can just put POI in the chat. And with that, I'll be starting the speech in 3, 2, and 1. So panel, let us look at the picture what we are painting here, and how does each and every definition in the factor of the motion is defined here. So first of all, let's talk about what an editorial collective looks like. An editorial collective is a body or organization, collection of journalists, media houses, publication houses that stand against social injustice or issues in society and world in current state. Now, the entire purpose of media is to basically react to what is happening in the world, present this in the format such that people are aware of it and positively remark a change. This is an accepted fact, such as we look into the various media proportionalities and media houses that are present in the status quo. Now, this is established. Let me also tell you something about these editorial collectives being in perspective of this debate, that is the news publications. Now, what is a news publication? Defining news publications are not limited to newspapers. They are the extensions of magazines, weekly distributions, online service newsletters, and publications which present this kind of information that has been talked about under the purview of media and communication. Now, also, let's talk about what this anonymity looks like. Anonymity, in simple definition in dictionary, means nobody knows who has given this, but at the same time, at least when we are talking about an editorial collective, since I've already established it's an organization, you know that it comes through this organization and body of collectiveness, but you don't exactly can pinpoint who has written it, so that it becomes very important in the purview of debate. And I'll show you how this impacting is much better than the comparative of status quo. Now, what is happening in status quo right now? Media sensationalized. Media is present. Media is constantly scrutinized by these big major actors. And what are these big major actors? If you look at if somebody is going against, let's say, a big country like Russia will go on and ban these newspapers. Why? Because they don't want this bad media rep, which is basically calling them out on literally war crimes. They don't want that, so they stop these media houses. Now, this is very wrong, because censorship curtails the freedom of media, and media was established in the first place to increase this freedom of communication for people in the given world. Now, why does this freedom and why does this communication matter so much? Communication matters and freedom matters because of two reasons primarily, panel. A, that if you don't know what is happening in the world, how do you put yourself inside it, and how do you get aware of what is happening with you yourself? So it matters a lot to people that they are getting the best of the best format, and they are being represented by these media houses in a way, because media houses bring really important issues to the surface and give it a public manner. Now, if you look at different war crimes that are committed, people who live there, they are suffering from these war crimes. People who are, even if you go into the remotest regions, they also suffer into different problems. And this is obviously taken out by media houses. Now, if you put a scrutiny on these media houses, if you put any kind of censorship, the entire impact of journalism decreases. That is why it is necessary that all these news publications that I have already told should be anonymized, so that nobody can go ahead and respond to them and stop them from giving this free communication to the world, for providing the true nature of journalism. Journalism is absolutely necessary, and news publications being anonymized protects the incentives of a lot of people. And let me come to that. Now, newspaper, like in general, if you're talking about these new anonymized collective, each and every editor who writes something, in status quo, if some editor writes something against a politician, that editor can in turn be sent death threats. At times it has happened, because people are really revolted about it, because they just the person went against the real devils of what the politician is doing. And that is why a particular editor, yeah, please go ahead.
How does, in your paradigm, getting the backlash to the media handles them?
Okay, so the backlash to the media simply means, if I am correct, you are talking about the authenticity as well as the accountability. And when we are presenting, this will be something that my PM goes into greater detail, but also touching upon it. Firstly, when you are an editorial collective, you are a collection of very deemed publications as well as organizations who have knowledge about media in the first place. Why is that true, panel? Because this organization takes people inside. This organization comes into a collective based on this matter, that people who are constantly writing, people who are constantly putting happening and being targeted towards one person itself, and that's why they come into a collective. Thus, the accountability is rather more on our side. It also increases the propensity of being more protected and delivering even better and authentic news. Also on the impacts, compared to the comparative of status quo, where these media houses can be scrutinized, one particular editor can be scrutinized and also can be targeted against. You should also consider the entire fact that these sole editors and writers, the pressure on them is really high, because these particular organizations that are present in the status quo, such as certain politicians, such as major MNCs, multinational companies, and even if you look at some public figure or celebrity, if they write against them and if they codify a particular set of media against them, they end up losing a lot of their freedom of being a journalist itself. Now the pressure decreases a lot in our paradigm. Why? Because simply this editorial collective makes a very protective measure. And secondly, on also the case of freedom from anonymity. But thirdly, or also on enhanced objectivity. Fourth, on impartiality. Impartiality, why is it important? Impartiality comes in perspectives of that, see, everyone is getting a voice inside this editorial collective without being scared of even their external factors. That's why it becomes very important that we have these editorial collectives. Now, crimes against journalism decreases, public trust increases, because they know now that no media house is under the pressure of other organizations, such as previously stated, in terms of corporations, politicians, states, or anywhere else. This way, media becomes a non-state actor that preserves the freedom as well as preserves the authenticity inside the state itself. And this is why it is very important that this particular motion persists on the side of government, and we take upon this issue and see them as an editorial collective, give them the power that media deserves, and give them the freedom that they deserve, because they are doing the work of basically communicating the truths in the world, and truth has to be extended to every person here, panel, and that is why vote for gov. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for that fine speech. I'd now like to invite LO to present opposition case. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. I'll just take 15 seconds before I start. Cool. Hello. This is Anushka. I'll be going as the LO for today's debate. Before I start my speech, a quick shout out to both my teammates. Thank you guys. You are the best. Without you, I wouldn't be here. Also, a shout out to SXC DevSoc. You guys literally supported me through every part of my debating career. And it is because of you that I'm here. So thank you so much. Also, congratulations to everybody. We made it to the final. That in itself is a very big thing. Okay, moving on. Preferred pronouns she, her. POI preference, I'll ask for one after the 5th minute. But if I don't ask for one after the 5th minute, you're welcome to raise your hand. Please don't vocalize. That being said, I'll be starting my speech in a self-countdown of 3, 2, and 1. Understand panel, to understand our case from side opposition, we want to provide you 2 major frameworks on how this world and media agencies as a whole look like, right? So first point of framing, understand panel, what is the purpose of news agency, or what does this news essentially is supposed to look like, right? These news organizations are supposed to give you news which are like sort of unbiased, without any speculation, without any perspective whatsoever, right? We are supposed to present to you news as it is, right? The second point of framing is what the actual nature of these media houses are. Understand panel that these media houses do not exist in vacuum. They are not an individual entity at all. Why is that? Understand panel, these media houses depend on a lot of other organizations, be it government or private, for funding. Also, the political standpoint of the entire area that this news organization is sort of situated in, sort of deters what news these news organizations are producing. So the entire fact that these news organizations have an incentive to produce unbiased news is wrong, right? These news news organization in itself tend to support a single type of biasness, right? Why? Because of the all above reasons, because of funding and government pressure and the framing that I've given you. Now, understand panel, what then happens in our paradigm that doesn't happen in their paradigm due to anonymity is now these media houses do not have a set of checks and balances, right? How is this happening? Understand panel, when I as a viewer do not know which individual is sort of responsible for which kind of news, I, as a viewer, cannot hold somebody accountable for a type of news that is being produced to me, right? I, as a viewer, am not aware of the process, whether it's transparent or untransparent. I don't know what kind of people are being involved in producing the news, right? What kind of people are, making the news or, providing the news, whether they have any individual biasness or not. Which means that because the process is not transparent, I, as a viewer, am totally unaware of it, right? Which means that transparency is something which is totally lacking in their paradigm, right? Now, understand panel, what then what we as side opposition would essentially want to propose to you, right? We want to propose to you a system where individual journalists or specific editorial boards are credited for their work. The system ensures 1, transparency, 2, accountability, 3, upholding of journalistic ethics, right? We also advocate for stricter regulations and protections to prevent undue influence on journalists, thereby preserving the integrity of news, right? Understand panel, why any of their major cases do not stand at all, right? It was their responsibility to show me that the anonymity will give them an N+1 benefit, but they are incapable to do so. Why? Because even if I considered that, outside actors would want to, ban me or censor me, understand panel that it exists nonetheless, because now the outside actor can ban the entire news editorial or the entire organization as a whole, right? So the outside, coercion and banning and censorship exists nonetheless, right? But understand panel that, they are not getting any N+1 benefit or any delta benefit in their paradigm. Even on the second point of protection, understand panel, the journalists, when they decide a career path, make this active choice to choose this path, right? It is like saying that, oh, I will become a politician, but if I'm opting to be a politician, then I should be, like responsible and, be aware of the fact that I may receive backlash in the future, right? I take, like the accountability for my individual choices. So when journalists are deciding to be journalists, they keep in mind the fact that yes, they can receive backlash and they can receive, like negative comments for whatever they're publishing. Now, because they are making this choice, they are aware of it. This is something they are choosing for themselves. What happens when we not promote anonymity is these journalists are more likely to be a lot more ethical, right? What does these ethics look like? It looks like protection of sources, not, like consenting to plagiarism, and, like being accountable essentially for whatever they write, right? Because now as viewers, we can hold them accountable for whatever they are, like presenting. Understand, panel, what the principle majorly we as side of want to present to you. One is the utilitarian point of view. Understand, panel, transparency is in journalism serves the public interest by basically fostering trust, right? When readers know who is responsible for the content, they can better assess the credibility and biases, right? Which means that ultimately we are leading to a better, more informed society, right? Anonymity, in contrast, erodes trust and reduces the overall utility that we as people are deriving from news consumptions, right? Also understand from the second point of view, journalists have a duty to uphold this truth and integrity, right? Attribution holds them accountable for this duty. Anonymizing articles removes this personal responsibility, leading to the potential decline in ethical standards and quality. Yes, PY, quick.
Yeah, you talked about how journalists would get into plagiarism, but how do journalists exactly get into plagiarism if they are reporting the news?
Cool. Not only news reporting, understand, panel, plagiarism can also be like me quoting some source, like as it has already been defined by the PM that, like news associations aren't limited to only, like a sort of like news channels or newspapers, but also magazines as a whole. So when I decide to write an article about something related to research or technology or, like movies or lifestyle, so I can, like plagiarize from a lot of other sources, and then I won't be held accountable for the same, right? For all those reasons, I think plagiarism is a valid concern that we as opposition should take. Now, understand, panel, this brings up to the major constructive that I said, accountability and transparency, right? Now, accountability looks in two ways, right? First, holding journalists accountable for what they are creating and what they are representing. I have already expanded on this in the previous case, but also on the second, holding the news editorials accountable for who they are choosing as journalists, right? So suppose if I am a member of the minority community and I want my voice to be represented in a sort of platform or sort of media houses, right? If there is anonymity, I won't have the assurance if my house is being, like represented. I won't have the assurance as a viewer of the amount of diversity that is present in the news media as a whole. As I've already mentioned in the framework of my speech, that news media tend to have biases. It is the viewer's pressure and the viewer's incentive that will give them this push to include diversity in their news editorials to make their news a lot more comprehensive and inclusive approach, right? Which then again brings to the fact that now news editorials in general will be accountable for who they're considering to be, like people in their organization or editorials as a whole. For all those reasons,
Thank you, Elo, for that fine speech. I'd now like to invite Deputy Prime Minister to continue Gov case. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, okay. So, hello, I am Shardul. I will be the DPM for, sorry, I will be the DPM. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So, panel, in this case, I would first like to just mention that the opposition has completely focused on one part of the motion and has somewhere ignored the one part of the motion, that is collective editorials. They have talked about the problems of anonymity, the problems that we create, and we may not be saying that, and the gov not giving an N+1, but they have not taken into consideration that is not just making it anonymous, it is making it collective. And as my PM suggests, as my PM told, that when you have a collective editorial, there are prominent editors, prominent publications coming together, compiling a particular information and then publishing it anonymously. Firstly, because there are multiple publications, what happens is every publication has its own way of understanding thing. Every publication has its own way of interpreting an issue. That is the reason, because conflicting opinions will be there, and because these editors are smart enough that they know that they have to compromise, they are going to be capable enough of somewhere keeping each other accountable. Because if somebody comes up and says something wrong, the others are just not going to sit there and listen to it, right? They are going to come forward and they are going to say that we need to change this information, we need to use a different kind of wording, etc., etc. But let's say that in their paradigm, accountability is more important, and that is why you don't need anonymity. But I'll tell you how this accountability actually looks like in real life. Making these publications accountable, one of the prominent and the most famous ways of making news publication houses accountable is censorship. And censorship has been labeled as one of the biggest banes of freedom of journalism. And and they have not told us how this process of keep making these people accountable is actually going to not be misused. They talk about stricter regulations, they talk about stricter laws, but how will censorship not? But again, that eventually leads to censorship. And how will censorship will actually be something that is good for journalism as a whole? On the other hand, as mentioned by my PM, this is going to be a collective editorial which talks about issues in the society, which again includes a collection of ideas, collection of things together. This thing does two things. Firstly, because right now, instead of people, publications hold each other accountable for the information that they are going to publish. Secondly, what happens is, because this is going to be one coherent publication, if you publish anything, obviously people are not just going to take it. The popularity of that publication is going to go down, and that is the reason they are going to be compelled to give out good information. Thirdly, what is going to happen is, which is actually the N+1 on our side. Firstly, actually there are two things that we give you on our side better than their side. Firstly, what happens is, because these publications with different ideologies, editors with different ideas come together, you get a diversified information and you get it in one place. A reader does not have to go to each and every publication to get more or less the same information from each side. He gets all the perspectives, all the kind of information in one place, without having to, without getting overwhelmed about it. I'll take the POI later. Without being overwhelmed about what is right and what is wrong. Moreover, because accountability will be taken into consideration by people and these publications as well, that is the reason the information in it will be completely trusted, and that is why the information will be more coherent and more refined. Both these things are something that we give you on our side. Also, as my PM suggested, when you talk about a thing like journalism pressure, it is a serious problem. Death threats are given. Unreasoned censorships are done. The voices of publications, the voices of good editors who actually want to tell the truth are somewhere suppressed. And all these things are not going to happen if anonymity is included. Anonymity is something that actually gives you something in addition, because firstly, as people know that these are diversified, coherent things which are probably going to be done by good editors, etc. Because this is the nature of how a collective editorial is made, in spite of not knowing who is the person behind it, still people, by analyzing the information that they are given, can clearly note that if this information is actually true or not. You can't just expect people to hold publications accountable on individual level. They will have the same amount of understanding for this collective editorial as well. And another thing that we give you, as I mentioned many times in my speech, the censorship problem which is there, wherein governments, wherein various organizations misuse this power of holding these publications accountable, is somewhere filtered out in our place. And also, we are not just saying about mere news giving. News publications have the purpose of talking about critical issues in the society, as mentioned by my PM, and that purpose actually links to telling the truths about the society. And this purpose is going to be better fulfilled in our paradigm, because we are giving you better conditions to write. POI, quickly.
Right. How does in your editorial or in your news publication internal disputes have been solved?
Okay, internal disputes are something that are going to be there in any publication house as well. So, firstly, internal disputes are going to be there, and secondly, the solving of internal disputes is a highly policy thing, but still I will tell you how it can be solved. Whenever you are given with the responsibility or you take up the responsibility of publishing a collective editorial, as I mentioned, prominent editors are chosen for this. Their names are not given. That is the reason what they say inside there is first of all not told to the other people. That's why the conflicts, whatever they are going to be in there. And as I mentioned, because these people are aware enough, because these people have an intellectual level, they are going to be open for compromise. The only thing that that would be avoided here is actual censorship. And these, whatever disputes they are, whatever disputes you're talking about, these disputes will be more easily solved because the best of every news publication is coming in, and because it's anonymous, their own agendas are somewhere filtered out. Whenever you go for individual publication, they have not taken into consideration how publications are also being controlled by organization at times. And again, because this is not taken into consideration, the freedom of a publication house, the freedom of a journalist is hampered in their paradigm. Censorship bans everything that everything good and actually something critical that these publications want to publish. And internal disputes, which are a trait of each and every publication house, will be easily solved in this case because the most experienced, one of the best people from all the strata of journalism will come together to publish this collective editorial. And that is the reason, because we give you so many better points of freedom, accountability, etc., etc., the government's paradigm stands above the opposition paradigm. Proud to propose.
Thank you, DPM, for that fine speech. I'd like to invite DLO to continue opposition case whenever you're ready. Here.
Right, I'll take 30 seconds. Right, am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Yes. Firstly, afternoon to you all. This is Agnev going as DLO. Congrats to both the teams for making this. Thank you, Ajaz, for hearing us. That being said, not a fan of shoutouts. I'll take and actively ask for a POI myself. But if I don't, then after 5:30, please just unmute and verbalize your POIs. If I just somehow forget. No preferred pronouns. Having said that, done that, I'll start my speech in a self countdown of 3, 2, 1. Understand panel, a straight caveat for you to understand state of the panel. The burden for side proposition on the government was to prove that the improved or the altered status quo is so much better that we need to take this massive action in itself. All that they have provided to us till now is very symmetric, and even if the benefit occurs, is marginal delta in nature, which means that whatever they try to achieve is simply nullified because of the fact that the way to achieve that, the cost of way to going there is way outweighs the how status quo in and itself is benefited from. Having said that, having cleared that caveat, then what I'm going to do, a series of 5 layers of rebuttal in my speech, and then lastly, going ahead with the constructive. Understand. Firstly, on the constructive of, or the need for what media and public takes. Understand, media in and itself needs 1, traction, and 2, money to perform. And public as an individual or as citizens as a whole need the information and also the need to know who have given this information so as to become more related to the information, because that plays a very big part. When this is clear, understand that the bad traction in our paradigm equates to also a good traction, because in itself, bad traction becomes more visibility, becomes more public lynching, which in and itself acts in favor of the citizens, which they don't have. Why is that so? In series of rebuttal I have explained. Firstly, on the side of accountability that they have presented to, Understand, I don't know how and why they have come up with this, how censorship is so hard and it doesn't have in their paradigm. Understand, censorship in and itself is very easy for them. It is to say that the government or the agency that controls all this media narrative can go ahead and censor the whole media as a whole. You make this more conglomerates that exist in the society in itself, which is now very branched out, but in your paradigm, it's very centralized, so as to speak, which means it becomes more essential for the government or the panel or the institutional to go ahead and censorship them, because they have concentrated power, more easy to manipulate power. Why the power can be manipulated and by whom? Given by my LO speech, how the media doesn't exist in a vacuum. It needs funding, it needs political standing to support and exist in itself. Having said about that, then secondly, they on to this accountability, but they go ahead and say somehow that, publications hold anyone accountable. This diversifies the news. That absolutely doesn't happen, because now you as an individual who is going to have some editorial views which goes against that news publication in itself, you can't get to publish that. Henceforth, you get nothing diversified views in and itself. The moment that happens, in and itself, you suppress that in two stakeholders, individual journalists as well as the news agency as a whole. Understand, new individual journalists in itself exist as an exception rather than a norm, not this panel. But even if they are exception, you take out the right and the choice of individual journalists to go ahead. You take out the choice of them actually protesting against the biasness of the media house that even exists, because now they can't go ahead and do that. Because understand, what in response to the POI they said on the purpose of solving this internal disruption that occurs is that you prominent editors will give into that, which is to say that they will always go ahead and focus on the prominent editors who is more likely to go ahead and get into the views as per what the media houses believes in, which into then and makes the people or the editors who give you contradicting views get more backlash, get out, and henceforth no say in itself. Having cleared that out, then understand, they claim that anonymity equals to more freedom, but they do not explain why that happens and how that exactly happens. I tell you why. It all again difference based on what are the constructive that we gave you. They did not challenge the constructive or the framing that we gave you. We take this as that we are already winning this and we are taking that. Understand, on the constructive, that media houses in and itself are not free. When that happens, understand, if the public in and itself doesn't know who is publishing what news agency or what news report, you as an editor or an individual journalist then doesn't have the authority to go ahead and garner that public support that you otherwise have or do in our let's say current status quo, and get to prove that the other views exist. What does this do then on the metric of news agency as a whole? Understand, now as a news agency as a whole, this has two scenarios in itself. If it's like a centralized news agency where it is just the non-one agency, and secondly on the news agency if we have more than one news agency. But before that, yeah, POI.
Does politics and money create more bias in information through the publications?
Understand, point of view, that's what I exactly said in that. The more bad traction you get equates to being more visible. The need for the media is traction, and the need for the people is getting that news in best way possible. Even if so, we as in give the citizen the opt-out mechanism to say and consume what they want. They don't have this opt-out whole choose-out mechanism in your paradigm panel. Understand, they have centralizing this and making a news flow going from one point of view towards the other, disseminating that. How does it look like? It leads to less diversification that the site was claiming. How? That the news agency, let's say if it's anti-government, if it still has some articles that would have it still published in the editorial section pro-government, doesn't happen right now, because as an agency, understand, you need to maintain that status and biasness that you already have. You need to maintain that thing in your status quo. The moment you do that, you cripple out the exception news that going to be presented. You cripple out the journalists in and itself who have lesser means to be seen in this news agency. You make it more hostile for the journalists to actually work, because now they have this mental look through that the only backlash I will get in and itself is from the public if I get to do something controversy news, if I publish something. Now that is also can be tackled by just thinking that this is our responsibility as a journalist looks like, but that doesn't happen. Like that only doesn't happen in our case, that also happened in their case, plus the internal hostilities that they face throughout this. Having said all of this, understand how crisis and conflict reporting is bad. Attributes in crucial for this crisis and conflict reporting, where credibility and first-hand accounts are very, very vital. When you take this out, when you take out the minority claim, when you make it more hostile for the individuals and the working there, when you take out the conflict reporting that happens and the news agency or citizens, how media sees news agency, we take this away, vote out.
Thank you, DLO, for that fine speech. I'd like to remind the House to not exceed 7:15, please. Anyways, inviting government whip to continue gov case. Here.
Oh yeah, I'll just take 10 seconds. Yeah, hi, this is Anushri. Before I start with my speech, a huge shout out to both of my teammates. Shardul is an amazing debater. Thank you for getting us to the finals. And Tanishka is my best friend. And we just go acting around as a couple. Well, we legitimized a relationship through a common West Side membership. Yeah, so getting that out of the place. Also, shout out to ILS DepSoc. So before I start with my speech, preferred pronoun she and her. POIs preferably after the 5th minute. I'm not sure if I'll be able to take them since I have a lot to cover already. But even after the 5th minute, just raise your hand if I have time. I'll surely take them. Yeah, with that out of the way, I'll start my speech on a reverse countdown of 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so panel, let me summarize what happened in the debate so far. Let me remind you first of all that this was a THBT motion, not a policy motion. I don't know why opposition comes in and gives their entire model about, okay, we'll make stricter laws for journalists, etc., etc. We need to argue on principles and values, and that is what side government has been doing throughout the debate. Let me tell you what are the burdens on both the sides. So the government had to prove how news publications being anonymized and signed as a collective editorial is good for all the stakeholders, which we have clearly done through our PM and TPM speeches. We talked about how biases are reduced in our paradigm, how we have enhanced objectivity and impartiality. We protect journalists. We also have accountability on our end and public trust. Let me tell you what the burden on side opposition was. How going forward with the motion will make it problematic. What does the opposition gives us? They just give us a very utopian model where they suggest that okay, we'll make changes to the status quo where we'll throw away censorship, we'll make stricter rules for journalists, etc., etc. But this does not satisfy the burden in any case. This was not a policy motion. I repeat again. What are the metrics of this debate? So the first is objectivity, impartiality, protection of journalists, accountability, biases that journalists bring, public trust, that is societal impact, minority topics, and censorship. Let me explain, panel, how we took over each of these metrics. Moving on to the clashes. So the very first clash, will this collective editorial bring about objectivity and impartiality? So the opposition comes and gives us very vague arguments on journalists should be ethical, they should have plagiarism checks, which will not exist on the paradigm of gov, etc., etc. Well, we are running an entire collective editorial. All of these things exist in an organization. Also, let me make it very clear, money and power create bias, and that is what is happening in the status quo. Well, what we as the government give here is that one piece will go through several people. That brings objectivity. Even if you have multiple perspectives, those multiple perspectives are combined into one single piece. There are no external pressures, personal biases are reduced since we have multiple perspectives. Again, what is the impact of this argument? Okay, let me make it very clear. Biases will exist on both the paradigms because biases are inevitable.
But weighing in here, what is the propensity of the bias? So the propensity is drastically less on side government because what we give you is objectivity and impartiality. That is, even if biases are coming in from a single person, there are multiple other perspectives to look at the issue, and one piece can be written with multiple perspectives. Then, moving on. Is media accountable? And if media is accountable, on whose end is media more accountable? So what the opposition gives us here is that, okay, the entire system of checks and balances will shatter down on the side of government because viewers need to know who wrote the article, or viewers need to know who reported the news. Well, I'll tell you how. On side government, we tell you that the publication's entire reputation is at stake rather than individual journalists. This has been made very clear by my PM and DPM that it is the reputation of the entire publication, entire collective editorial which is at stake, which is our impact, which leads to stronger impetus for adherence to editorial standards. And when they have a stronger inclination towards adhering to these standards, it increases accountability. So accountability, which was the exclusive argument, is clearly on our side, which has been very well mechanized in the DPM speech. Also, the next clash, on whose side are journalists safer? The opposition, I don't know how, makes this assertion that the journalists took the risk of becoming a journalist. So even if they are facing crimes, even if they are being killed, it's their problem, not ours. Well, I'll tell you what government did here. We say that yes, they have taken the risk, but that does not mean that they deserve the crimes that are happening against them in status quo. And this is where we give you our impact. On our end, the identity of the journalist is kept anonymous. That is that they are safer on our end. I'll just give you one example to mechanize this more and give you more analysis. Look at what's happening in Palestine and Gaza. They have a collective editorial, and the identities of the journalists are being kept anonymous, and that is why they are being able to report the news. Yeah, moving on. So the next clash is what brings public trust is exactly, and whose side is society more happy? Well, the opposition comes and tells us that okay, people are not going to lose faith in the system because they need to know the name of the author who wrote the news or the journalist who reported the news. Let me ask you a very simple question, panel. How many times do you go ahead and read the name of the author who is writing the news article? I don't. I'll tell you what the government gives you here. Readers perceive the news as a product of a rigorous collective process rather than potentially flawed work of an individual in our paradigm. Because that piece is going through so many more people, it is a product of a rigorous process. And that is why people are going to trust that article more, since it has all the perspectives coming from all the different people. What is the impact of this? On our end, the trust of the audience who are reading rises. People who previously thought that news is just mirch and masala, or okay, this is very biased, this is just giving me the leftist view or the rightist view, start to trust the system. That is, society is happier on our end. Also, talking about censorship, making it very quick. Opposition says that censorship exists on our end since there is only one organization. We tell you that censorship comes from politics. There is political pressure which brings censorship. We offer anonymity, which will obviously reduce the censorship. Now talking about what was exclusive on their end, the LO comes and says that we have a system of checks and balances and accountability. I've clearly proven how accountability exists on our end. The propensity of accountability on our end is higher than theirs. What we as the government give, which is exclusive in this debate, we give you that through our paradigm, you get diversified information in one place. Minority topics that were previously did not gain traction will come. What was the best case scenario? Best case scenario of the side opposition is status quo, that is crimes and censorship against the journalist. Worst case scenario on our end is that conflicts of interests are there inside the organization, but at least you get news from all the perspectives. So all the stakeholders in our paradigm are happier than the side opposition. Thank you so much. Vote for government.
Thank you, Gov Whip, for that fine speech. I'd like to invite Opposition Whip to continue the debate. Here.
So as the off whip, I'll take a few seconds to give a self count for starting. Right. So yes, going as the op with preferred pronouns she, her, preferred mode of POI to raise hands, preferably after the fourth or fifth minute. I'll probably ask for it if needed. With that, starting my speech in the self counters. 3, 2, and 1. Now, panel note, we've recognized our burden well, right? Our burden from the motion was to show that how there are no net benefits of this anonymization and the model and the new model of collective editorial that the government is believing will actually help, right? Okay, so the clashes that we have noticed throughout the debate is like, first of all, is on censorship, right? So now, panel note, when there is a collective editorial, anonymizing the collective editorial, there is only one mode of publication which can still be taken down by a government. If they are actually striving for truth, if they're actually bringing out the faults in the government, why can't a government like Russian government or any other government for that matter go out and bring that down, right? It can still be brought down. But in our paradigm, we have several pipelines for truth, right? There are several media houses. So if one is taken down, if at all it is taken down, then the other one, then several others are working for it, right? So truth reaches the people somehow. So in our paradigm, truth clearly, truth clearly exists. It's prevalent, right? On the clash of security, right? First of all, in their paradigm, the attack is if there is an attack, as I just mentioned, the government may have this kind of problem with the whatever they're publishing, right? If they're actually going for truth, then and the government has a problem with it. If there is an attack, the attack is on the whole editorial, and even though it is probably not physical on one particular journalist, the attack, the consequences are faced by the whole editorial. The one mode of truth is attacked. Also, and suppose the grudge is against the editorial board on whole, and whoever is recognized to be a journalist. Today, I say I'm a journalist. I am known to be a part of that. So, regardless of whether I've been a part of that publication, a particular publication or not, I will be attacked anyhow, right? So the attack still remains. Also, their paradigm is not reducing crimes against journalists, mind you. But in our paradigm, what we are doing is, yes, we have talked about the nature of journalism, right? The profession journalism. So big media houses, they are big conglomerates, right? They cannot back out from the responsibility of taking being responsible for the safety of their journalists, right? And also to ensure that one single journalist is safe is not as difficult as ensuring each and every journalist is safe, right? Which is clearly, in their paradigm. Also, in our paradigm, we are pushing for the responsibility of the media house to take the ensure safety of the journalist. We are actually pushing. We are standing up against the crimes against journalists. So journalists and are clearly benefited. Also, what are the problems with collective editorial? They could not engage with our point of particular internal disputes. Why? Now, internal disputes, first of all, in our paradigm are very less likely to happen, because in our paradigm, when a person, a journalist, anyone is recruited in a media house, it is likely that they are of the same ideology of the media house, and that is the very reason they're recruited in the media house in the first place. But in their case, I'm going to expand on that through another clash, which is biasness and freedom of speech, which clearly doesn't exist in their biasness. It doesn't exist in their paradigm, and there is no freedom of speech, which is unlike our paradigm. Why? In their paradigm, in the collective editorial, most experienced editors are heading that collective editorial. Now, these editors are from media houses which have conflicting yet particular ideologies, right? So, how do they come about and decide on what to publish on decisions, right? So, if majority wins case happens in their paradigm, then clearly the freedom of speech of one editor, that one editor who wants to publish something, thinks it is correct, is taken away. Also, if it is discussion anyway, like they discuss and decide what to do, then also we can take that editor whose publication is clearly censored or not being able to or not allowed to publish is being coerced into thinking something else. It is being coerced to not. It's coerced to give in, right? Okay, and also. Now, what does majority look like? Even in an editorial collection, a group of editors of, as I just said, it can be a one-side leading kind of editorial. Let's say it is government appeasing, right? So what do we do? That in that case, also biasness still is prevalent, right? Also, what if now understand a collective editorial cannot sustain on public funding, so they have to resort to some kind of conglomerates or probably the government or some kind of agency to get funding. And in this case, again, if majority wins happens, or the collection of editors who have different ideologies, different ties, different beliefs, and all that, to give in to powers, to give in to funds, right? They will again allow biasness, not allow freedom of speech to happen. But in our paradigm panel, the editors and media houses publish what they want, even if it is biased, even if it is biased. Today I understand this ideology is not something I support, it is biased. I can resort to another mode of publication, right? So it is not just one publication that if I feel it is biased, there are modes I can resort to, right? I'll take a POI quickly.
If the identity of the editors is anonymous, how does in our paradigm they are attacked?
They are what? Sorry? Attacked, right?
Yes.
No, they're attacked because the brunt of that comes on the whole collective editorial itself. Today I say I'm a journalist, then people the attacker will recognize, oh, you are a journalist, that means you definitely are a part of the collective editorial. I will attack you. That brunt will come on us, right? So the brunt will come on you regardless of whether you have are part of the publication or not. So security doesn't exist in your paradigm and is better off in our paradigm. Also, accountability. Even if the article is going through a collection of a group of editors, and if it is still striving for truth, probably the editors will say, okay, just give it out, right? But in our paradigm, the journalist, first of all, accountability exists in our paradigm more. Why? Because first of all, the journalist, not just for the fear of attack, but also for the fear of fear of public backlash, will have more to publish more. Have the incentive to publish more truth. It will push for more better quality of news, because the journalists will work more, and simply because it will also garner public confidence. So popularity of a particular news. Also, they talk about how credibility comes in. Look, in their paradigm, if it's a good publication, the whole collective editorial gets the credit of that. But in our paradigm, a person gets a publication, a person gets the credit, right? So it pushes them to do it, and that is the very reason that, and this good work will actually earn him name. They were asking how many times we note the name of journalists, but this good work will actually earn a name. So for all those reasons, for journalists, for the sake of truth, for democracy, for everything, please vote. Thank you.
Thank you, OpWhip, for that fine speech. I'd like to invite opposition reply. Just a reminder, reply speeches are 4 minutes and 15 seconds long. You're here.
Right. We'll take 15 seconds and have a separate. Yeah, before starting, again, quick shout out to Adrika and Anushka for bearing me, having me through this tournament. Right, saying that this is DLO going as the opposition whip. I'll start my speech in a self countdown of 3, 2, 1. Simple reply for you, panel. Based on the one metric, where is the world better off than? I'll divide it into 3. First, news agencies. Second, the government and the agency that actually control this news is. And third, on the public. Right. Understand on the news agency, first on the individual journalist. When we say and come up and say that it's more hostile for them to work on, there was no responses for that we given. Which is to say, there's more internality, discrepancy that goes on, more favoritism that goes on, which makes you promote certain journalists and they promote another set of journalists because of the community they come from, because of the people they represent. Not only that, you have the plus n amount of backlash which also exist in their parent. Understand, in our case, if we go ahead and push out some controversial, me as a journalist, controversial material, I am expected, or me as a journalist will expect some public backlash that could happen, which also exists on their side of the house. But now they don't know, like the public don't know this public lynching is going on to that media agency, and media agency in itself now goes ahead and discard that journalist as a whole, prevent that journalists to publish more records, because why they need to prevent or present their need not to tarnish their image as a whole. Understand? Then lastly, on the example they give you, when they say, come up and say that, okay, you know what, nobody reads the byline or whoever written this article. Ma'am, if you don't care to read the article, or if you don't care to know who the journalists are, why are you going ahead and vocalizing for anonymity and credit creation, systemic credit creation as a whole? I don't get it where they come from and give that point. Having said that, on the attacks that the journalists receive, the very attack that you get is to that you do not represent what you are truly supposed to. As a journalist, you are someone to be under the public scrutiny and then go ahead and publish this news, so as to make sure that your news or who you are stands the test of the public and their opinion in that caters. Having said why it's bad for the news individual journalist, on the media agency as a whole, the public lynching now is going to be against the media houses. Understand, in previously our status quo, if someone is not liking some article, be it in print media or in social media, the media as a whole, it's a win for them, because they now focus on more diversified views and people are lynching them. But that doesn't happen because it's more centralized in their paradigm. Which is to say that the media cannot go ahead and say that, okay, we don't take this responsibility, we are just vocalizing our editorial views. It comes down as media specifically supporting a specific agenda, which when comes out, it takes out the lot of funding that you get in and itself. Because understand, we have explained to you, media does not exist in a vacuum panel. It needs funding to be sustained. It needs biasness to be sustained. And we as a whole, as a citizen with no anonymity, helps to decrease that biasness that exists. Having said that, then, thirdly or secondly, on the government, understand, in democracy, more voices is good. Bad traction equals to good traction. You are already making this already coexist conglomerates into a superpower, into a very high holding power when you are making them a centralized view. The moment you have that, it also becomes not only looks two cases. Either it becomes very, very hard for the government to actually keep a check on it. It leads to them influencing the public in a way, whatever way they can, because of narcotizing effect of media. I have already told you how we see what we consume and what we think is how we supposed to think. It's something that the conglomerates already do, media agency already do. This is first. But on second metric, it also makes it somewhat easier for the government then to take a control of it, and because it's already centralized there. And lastly, on the public, because you have more choices, because you have more information to go for, and because you have more freedom for the journalists and news agencies as a whole, vote authenticity.
Thank you, Op Reply, for that fine speech. I'd like to invite Gov Reply to conclude the debate. Here.
Okay, hello everyone. Tanishka this side went as the PM, will also be going as the reply for the government. Can I get the reset on time? All right. Fair. I'll be starting my speech on a reverse self count of 3, 2, and 1. Panel, let me just tell you what the reply is to this entire debate and why, as an adjudicator, when you're looking at it, and what are the clear metrics and why we take this debate in very simple terms. Now, look at what this entire editorial collective was. Editorial collective was an organization of collection that runs itself and was clearly defined by me in the Prime Minister's speech, and that was the entire narrative which I pushed completely for minutes. I don't know why the opposition went on and screwed in different definitions and this brought in different things. I don't understand how that is relevant. But also in the world of the basis of what we are looking here is on three things: freedom of media, second representation of news, maintenance of media and journalism. Now, media and journalism inherently is defined by clear metrics of objectivity, impartiality, no biases, minorities have to be represented. There is no one who is scared of, like, there should be no person inside the media or journalism who is scared about writing something, because they are being basically substandard by these political funds that the opposition comes in and says, oh, you need monetary fundings. Oh, I thought these publication houses got monetary fundings from basically publishing their own stuff and they got their monetary revenue from that. But apparently they are supporting what sense they are inherently supporting censorship in a whole, because if you're talking about funding that is required by these media houses, if you put in maximum amount of monetary fundings for a particular media house, you go on to control it, because you say that I am the maximum monetary stakeholder, bring me whatever I want to do or else I'll pull away my funding. Simple. People, media houses in general in the status quo, when they are given this entire pressure on this factor of monetary funding, it becomes problematic. It leads to censorship, it leads to controlling through the powers of economic standards, and that is why we are absolutely opposing the status quo. And we have given multiple reasons why. Op comes in and says that there are harms, like for example of the publication, you don't know who is publicating, but honestly collective, like somebody individually would not have the power to like go and have a publication. But also, fun fact, if you go in and put in collective, if you have an editorial collective and you're basically publishing something there, it is much better, because if you're publishing there, you get much more opportunity, you are not scrutinized by people, and you are also can present certain niche problems that are in the society without being called out because you were in the minority besides in the status quo. Now, second harm that they are really pushing in this entire debate is that one side is leading to very minute extremes of how these media houses go on to have this one particular political propaganda or one particular understanding of the society. No, media and journalism is all about being the voice and lens of reporting stuff and presenting what is the negatives in the society. I don't understand why one extreme pushing is going to come down and bring down the government's case that is basically promoting bringing out the voice first. Everything that you are talking about, everything that you're pushing on the basis that we are going to maintain more authenticity, we have more accountability. Brother, if you just go on and have no voice and you have censorship upon yourself, what are you going to say anyways? So all this kind of comes down and trickles down to this entire factor of, I'm not sure why this internal disputes and everything will be overpowering the great importance of these media houses being in editorial collective. And we never said it was going to be government control. And even if no government is stupid enough to go on and ban these editorial collectives, but even if they do you not understand, if this one particular editorial collective is the main source of news and media for public will go on to resent this at a much larger population basis, because this population is concerned about the only way of communication. It happened in 1940s during World War II. Why would it not happen right now? On the simple metrics of common sense. Now, transparency and accountability are very much protected on our side. And if you look at the Sheets panel during the DPM speeches as well as the whip speeches, it is much more clearly framed. And also, this was not a model giving debate. This was clearly a value judgment debate. We have clearly shown you how our world is better on simple metrics of impartiality. Public trust increases on our side because now people know that nobody is controlling these media houses. We have an impartial media house present, an impartial, anonymous media house present that is not scared of anyone. They will go on and report for every malpractices and every harm that is present in the society. And that is what is needed when it comes to media. Vote for Gov.
Thank you, Gavriply, for that fine speech. And I'd like to thank and again congratulate both the teams on making it thus far. I now request the teams and the audience and spectators to leave the room so that I can discuss the final verdict with the rest of the panelists. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye.
Sure. Thank you, the other team. It was so lovely to have you debate with us.
Thank you for the debate. It was a good debate.
Thank you so much for the debate.
Yeah,
Thank you for the
for the
others.
debate.
Hope to see you in open finals someday.